Hello and welcome back once again to the Single Malt Review. We've got a bit of an outlier this time. This common malt here. What have you brought?
Well, we're diving into the lowlands today, and it's an independent bottling, and for the first time on our show, it's an Auchentoshan. We have here, this is from Langside Distillers, the Hepburns Choice series. It is a single cask, 12-year-old Auchentoshan from, I believe, a bourbon barrel.
Nothing to do with the more well-known Hepburn, of course. It was who wasn't one of their uncles or something?
The grandfather of the director of Langside Distillers was a gentleman named William Hepburn. He was a diplomat and travelled a lot. So when they call this Hepburn's Choice, what they mean is they believe Mr. Hepburn would have liked this whiskey a lot, so they named it in his honour. It's possibly a slightly tenuous connection, but hey.
Oh well, I guess probably Hepburn's Choice was a bit too long to fit on the label. But taxonomically, of course, it is an Auchentoshan, which is one of the very, very few, okay, even more than that, it's stingy, wasn't it? One of the very, very few lowland distilleries still in operation. There used to be a great many, there is now a great few. And seeing independent bottles of them is, ergo, quite rare.
Yeah.
So I'm quite interested to see this. It's bottled at 46%, but not coloured, not chill filtered.
And from a single cask, which is always good to know.
Yes, indeed. So, Auchentoshan Lowland. Interesting in that they are the only distillery, with one partial exception, to distill in the Irish style of 3 times distilled. So it's quite a... Well, it's not... You'd have to make up your own opinion as to what difference that really makes in the spirit. It's very much its own thing, but whether that's a case of how it's handled or how it's distilled... maybe mileage may vary on that one, but yes, it is as the Irish do. It is distilled 3 times, and
so
not
Brook Laddie will do up to 4, depending on how novel we're feeling. But
Brook Laddie will do some weird stuff, but with no particular consistency, so that's hard to rate. The other person who will do consistent 3 times distillation is Springbank. They do their famous 2.5 times distilling because. They distill a third of their production is distilled 3 times, and then it's blended in with what's been distilled twice. Why they do this is one of the great mysteries of Springbank, of which there are many.
Good balancing act to get just the right flavour.
Honestly, who can say? When it comes to odd things that Springbank does, really only Springbank knows. So, never mind.
Now, this is not the first Auchentoshan we've tried personally, but the first one we've reviewed. It is, however, definitely our first encounter with the Langside Distillers company.
Yeah,
They're not actually distillers, are they?
No, they're more bottlers than distillers. They're the people behind the illustrious John Player blend, which we don't get here, and this Hepburn's Choice, which seems far more commonplace. But we don't get this here either. This came from the absolutely excellent Whisky Castle in Tom and Toole in Scotland, and I picked this up on my way through there last year. So this one, sort of from abroad, not something we'd normally be able to see.
That's a 2003 distillation, so presumably a 2015 bottling.
Yeah, and being that that's uncoloured, I'd say that's a pretty well worn bourbon cask. That's a second, if not third, fill in there. So Auchentoshan, being a very light whiskey, this will be a real light version of a real light whiskey. So we'll be looking for something very, very spirit-driven here.
Yeah. But give credit to the packaging. This is a very well-presented whiskey. There's very good high production values for the labelling and the box and whatnot. It doesn't actually say what the cask was, though. Only if it was a single cask. We're going to assume bourbon.
It leaves that up to the imagination.
Sort of factors.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's bourbon. Auchentoshan doesn't do a great deal of sherry matured whiskey anyway.
You have to try reasonably hard to get a colour that light off anything other than...
Lowland whiskey as a whole doesn't really gel with sherry casks. It doesn't really work with them very well. It's a light flavour hitting a heavy flavour. So, not really what nature intends. But anyway, we'll get on with this one. Certainly
bales of hay, some light florals, dandelions, daisies, things I tend to associate with the lowland style.
It's grassy, which is very, very lowland, but there's a lot of dried grass in there as well. Hay, as you say, quite sort of like you've ever been in close proximity to a hay bale. That's very, very indicative there. There's very, very faint floral aromas in there. and quite a good solid maltiness as well. For one that's been distilled 3 times, there's still quite a good sweet malting backbone to the nature of the spirit.
Auchentoshan triple distill everything they use?
As far as I know, every single drop of Auchentoshan has been through the still 3 times. What arrangement of stills, I don't know. Presumably 1 wash distillation and then 2 times through the spirit still, or they might have some intermediate thing. I really don't know. I didn't look up that particular smidgen, but at any rate, it's a very very light, clean, and fairly simplistic nose. There's not a great deal.
There's a faintest hint of what I
on.
would compare to just a sort of like a Band-Aid sort of a smell. I don't know.
There's a tiny bit. I'm actually attributing that, I think, to the fact that we had a very, very strong Isla whiskey in our glasses last. That is not something native to Auchentoshan, I think.
So I have thoroughly rinsed my glass, but...
Yeah, I'll do a double check there.
Right.
I will sniff the bottle. No, I think that's something survived from the elements of Isla in there, because it's not really native to the whiskey. You'd be surprised how many times you can wash a glass and the peated whiskey will hang on.
That's all right. And rinsed out. There shouldn't be any of that on the
No, it won't be
palate,
anything on the palate, but no, that's that.
It is just a faintest smidgen of
There's a warning from the industry. If you've got Isla whiskey in the glass, probably get a new glass.
Just buy a new glass, consign it to a fire, recycle it.
That glass
and
is...
have a truly fresh glass.
That glass is used once you've got the Isla whiskey in it, at least until it's been all the way through the dishwasher. So...
Ooh, that is light and inviting. It's a very fizzy lemon sherbet and zingy lemon character.
Yeah, almost like a lemonade kind of a thing. Lemon citrus, quite a lot of sweet, light maltiness, very, very light and crisp.
A little bit of cashew, a little bit of apple.
Very light, sort of, lightly flavoured nuts. There's cashew and quite a lot of almond as well. Almond is one of the few real distinct things about Auchentoshan. Very, very almondy whiskey. Sort of like sweet, natural almonds, like almond oil almost. Not anything not roasted almonds. The flavour changes quite dramatically when you roast almonds. You get more of a dense, heavy thing. Sort of sweet, natural almonds, which are less common. This very, very distinct.
That's a very easygoing, inviting, and engaging flavour. That's at its full 46% strength, and it's sippable, it's smooth, drinkable. There's no rush of heat or of ethanol off that.
No, I think it's a perfectly good strength. This is very, very typical of what you'd call a before-dinner whiskey. It's something good to sort of wake the palate up and start it tasting. It's certainly not something that you want to have after, say, a big lineup of very punchy or very complex whiskies. But as a palate warm-up or a palate cleanser, it's really, really good. It's very, very uncomplicated.
It is a very clean flavour too. It's quick, it's abrupt, it gets into your mouth, fills all your senses, but doesn't overpower or it's not confronting or at all burning or painful.
Very, very approachable whiskey.
And that's a good thing. I'm very much enjoying this. Adding a small hint of water has maybe tempered some of the more outrageous lemony notes, made a bit more middle of the road, but it really honestly wasn't necessary in this case.
No,
this is as drinkable, diluted versus undiluted.
I might have killed mine. I only put a small amount of water in. I think I probably put it down to 40%, and I think it was relying on some of that stronger body to really get through. I think it's just a little too light now. There's
just hints of maybe a few herbs coming through, just a little bit of rosemary and a bit of kefir lime. It's putting me in mind
on the rosemary.
Yeah, sort of like a Thai curry.
It's certainly, I think it would be something really, really at home were you to throw an ice cube in there. It's a really good sort of, implying it's not the middle of winter here and quite a cold day, but it's a really good sort of summer's day refreshing whiskey. It would make an awesome long drink, I think. And a good base for if you were in the mind to make a whiskey cocktail, which is really not something I do. I drink whiskey as whiskey. But I know some people are into their quite quite complicated sometimes, whiskey cocktails. And so if you're doing anything that involved sort of soda water, fizziness, anything like that, a longer drink, I think this would be something to go for. And in turn, Auchentoshan itself would be one to go for.
I'd say you'd lose a lot of these flavours if you put this into a cocktail.
Oh, you certainly would.
It's not a heavy, overpowering body on this. It's a great flavour, but it's light enough that I think you would lose that easily if you watered it down too much, and especially if you blended it into something else. This, I think, is good on its own. It's crisp and refreshing without having to be reduced below its 46% standard bottling strength.
Yeah, scores-wise for this one, it's not really my cup of tea, but then again, Auchentoshan itself isn't really my cup of tea. I'm not really hugely into the whole lowland whiskey thing. I don't think a great many people are. That's probably why there's so few in operation these days. There's just not that much in demand. Auchentoshan is really one of the more present ones still out there. They're really sort of making a go of it, presumably successfully because they've been around for quite some time. But no, this one's an 81 from me. Now, not really my cup of tea, but I can appreciate it for being a really good, clean, approachable younger whiskey. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to go significantly higher. We continue on a recent trend of me coming to grips with and starting to enjoy younger bourbon matured whiskey. Even though it's 12 years old, that's by no means a young whiskey. It's got a lot of the characters of the younger bourbon matured whiskies we've had from elsewhere. It's coming through bright and clear. It's a very enjoyable, very quaffable dram. And yeah, 88%. It's a very good whiskey. It's unique, a good expression, and a particularly good cask, I'd say, and well chosen by Langside.
Certainly a very good example of its home distillery. As for who to recommend it for, I think it's people that do like their light and refreshing whiskies, the people that enjoy their single malts with ice or with a bit of water, or chilled or anything like that. Certainly that kind of whiskey. And for anyone that sort of wants maybe someone who drinks vodka or spirits like that and wants to have a direction into single malt, but nothing that carries too much sort of weird flavour on the outset. This is as much spirit as it is sort of wood and things like that. It's very, very crisp, very, very clean, very, very refreshing. And if that sounds like your thing, then it's probably, and Auchentoshan itself, is probably the one for you, even if it's not for me. But at any rate, this has been the Single Malt Review with Hepburns' Choice, Auchentoshan 12 years old. We will have something equally interesting for you next time. Thank you very much. Slajo.